Girl, you tell the truth. You tell the truth. You tell the truth.
From the Media Factory in the south end of Burlington, Vermont, this is 99.3 FM, WBTV, LP Burlington, and streaming online at 993wbtv.org. This is Thrive with Morella, the show for people who want to thrive, body, mind, heart, and spirit. I'm Morella DeVoe, your host, and I'm thrilled to have with me today someone who is also all about thriving, and not just about thriving herself, but about helping others thrive in small ways. So let me tell you about her. And I have a couple questions for you to tee up our conversation with my guest, Robyn Spizman, who is a prolific best-selling author. But let me ask you a few questions first. Do you say I love you to your loved ones every day? And how about this? Is it easy for you to express genuine, heartfelt gratitude and appreciation to people around you on a regular basis? Or are you more the kind of person who feels a little uncomfortable, a little bit wiggly when you feel you need to share something, and maybe you just feel like you don't know what to say? And so my guest, Robyn Spizman, is the author of many, many books. She is one of the country's leading gift-giving, parenting, and how-to experts. She has appeared weekly on the Atlanta NBC affiliate WXIA TV for more than 3 decades with her Been There, Bought That, Super Shopper, and Super Mom segments. She is a popular radio personality. She was heard for over a decade on Star 94 and online daily with the Giftionary Show, focusing on gift-giving advice for all occasions. She's been on the Today Show for more than 30 occasions where she's been invited to share her tips, her insights, and her wisdom. And her books, get a hold of this. She has so many books, I can't list all of them, but she's written books, best-selling books such as When Words Matter Most, Make It Memorable, The Giftionary, Where's Your Wow, Women for Hire, The Ultimate Guide to Getting a Job, Do Your Giving While You're Living, so important, Beyond Ritalin, Helping the ADD Hyperactive Child, and many, many others. Her new book is this one right here, which I've had the pleasure of reading this weekend. It's called Loving Out Loud, The Power of a Kind Word. Robyn Spizman, it's just such an honor to have you on the show today.
Morella, it's my honor. So it's like a boomerang, and I appreciate your questions and your words, and you're welcome so much.
Yes, I'm thrilled to have you. So Robyn, as I do with all my guests, we would love to hear from you. What is one of your personal keys to thriving in life?
There's so many different answers, but I'm going to start with something that's so important if you're going to start to become more aware of loving out loud. And that is to take your to-do list. Morella, I'm sure like me, you have a lot of things on the list that you have to get done and run from errand to errand, sometimes person to person, call to call. It can be overwhelming. But what helps me thrive is as I'm doing my to-do list, I shift it more to a to-love list. My to-love list becomes bringing the best part of me to that errand or to that specific moment with someone that I share. And instead of being overwhelmed with how much I have to get done, I look at each situation and I think, if I show up and I lift someone up, or I really give someone a cheerful disposition, a smile, a kind word, in sincerity from my heart, the moments of my day actually provide me more time and more meaning. And that's how I thrive, is I really look at, instead of being hurried and busy and rushing, to slowing down, noticing the little things, and being more aware how I affect others. And I think that's what thriving is when you thrive, but you also are influencing those around you to thrive. And
Right.
it's a really beautiful reciprocal thing.
Absolutely. And I love that you call it a to love list. I remember I did something different with my to-do list where after a while of feeling like I was being, terrorized by my to-do list, where it was just always this growing thing of a beast that never ever got any better. It only got longer and more overwhelming and more, it's just a tyrant. My to-do list was a tyrant. I started calling it writing an accomplishment list. And so I would start writing every day the things that I had accomplished because I was getting into a feeling where nothing got done. But I love your spin of maybe there are a lot of the same things on your to-do list, but when it's a to-love list, it just adds the spin of how are each of the things that you're doing a contribution, a way of lifting someone, of giving something to someone. Where grocery shopping is brought into maybe an act of love, where you're shopping for your loved ones, you're nourishing your loved ones and your body, right?
Right. So it starts to happen in our minds, how we start to see our day. And I think the beautiful thing also is when you think about a to love list, you start to be conscious of is this a special day? Is this a day someone's having a hard time? Is this a day when someone needs a little cheering up or a pat on the back? Or how is your grandchildren's day at school or something like that? And I think what we start realizing is that we're never going to regret the errand we didn't get done, right? But we're going to regret the person we didn't share how much we love them.
Right.
And that's where we have no real expiration date on relationships, and they take nurturing. So I never want to miss that moment where I tell someone how much they mean to me. And that's what my to love list includes now, and I'm more aware of the power of it. And I love how, Morella, you said, you were starting that your to-do list was becoming a beast.
Yeah.
And, you can either be a victim or you can be victorious. So we're shifting our mindset, and we're thriving in a way where we learn to ask for help. We learn that loving out loud, which is the book that I wrote, is one of the most empowering things we do for ourselves. We look in the mirror instead of saying, Robyn, you look exhausted today, and all these things. We look in the mirror and we say, you go, girl, you got it. You can manage this, go one day at a time and be there for. And that's how I start my day. And that's what Loving Out Loud begins with, this consciousness. And then we begin our day with moving through loving out loud. And when you love out loud and you connect with someone, you feel it, a stranger, a friend. It's not romantic in the romantic sense of the word, though it can be. But loving out loud says, I give myself permission to share my feelings. And it's not awkward. And it's not strange to say, Morella, you rock, you're amazing. Like, I get all your videos just, touched me because I can go there and get help on a day when I feel stressed or otherwise. And it's building a better world. And that's what we can do together.
Absolutely. And so I love what you say, that it's kind of a shift. What you're writing about in Loving Out Loud is a shift in mindset for many, because we started off talking about the to-do list. I love that early in the book, you quote someone talking about kind of the very common kind of awfulizing or catastrophizing mindset, where people are focused on everything that's going wrong. The news reminds us of that every day. We've got a giant to-do list at work, a giant to-do list at home, things that needs to be done for the kids. And so it's very easy to be caught in a mindset of all of the problems in life, all of the things that need fixing. And what you're presenting is a shift out of that mindset. So can you share with the audience some examples of what Loving Out Loud looks like that helps to shift that mindset of dwelling on the problems and the negative things in life?
Well, the first thing to do, and I have to do this every day, so everyone listening, I take my own advice. I'm certain I wrote this book as a reminder of what a good life looks like that I wish to follow. Awfulizing is a term shared to me by Bruce Blythe, a brilliant professional who's a crisis management expert. And he really talks about that so much of the time we take a thought, we replay it in our minds till the point that we believe it's true, and we create a great deal of worry. And by awfulizing, it's taking something and making it worse than it is, and we believe it. And then actually, when we start to relax more, we start more of an acceptance about whatever situation's going on that we cannot control, whatever truth that we must face that might not be very comfortable. So I think the idea in this book, Loving Out Loud, was to take my reader on a journey through their relationships, friends, sisters, family, difficult bosses, partners, others, and really work on all the little things you can do to learn how to accept not that which you want to change. You can't make someone love you out loud. You can't snap your fingers and make someone kind and wonderful. But what you can do is create boundaries, learn when you need professional help. You can create a life that says, this is how I wish to be treated, and you go first. You become the person who loves out loud, because you can't get love back if you don't become the giver. But Morella, I'd like to share one thing that happened that was extraordinary. When New World Library, my publisher, who's amazing, asked me about the forward of the book, in my dream of dreams, I imagining the woman, Donna Markova, who wrote Random Acts of Kindness decades ago, who really shaped the way we look at kind acts. And she said if she liked the book, she'd write the foreword, which was incredible. And she did. And the foreword, if you just read the first 3 pages of this book, it's life-changing. And I wish to quote her, because she said, it took me decades to learn that love is not a noun or an object. It is not a thing you have or can lose, a fixed state you are in or out of. Love is a verb, growing your ability to reach, speak, and act with love out loud will soften the numbness of your own heart and increase aliveness within and around you. Mm-hmm. And what you start realizing is that if you're at home going, rush, we got to hurry, we're late, and you're constantly trying to move everyone around you faster, quicker, and you start to recognize that when you slow down, you get it done. And being a minute or 2 late just might be the greatest blessing on earth, to learn how to recognize hearing yourself. Yeah. So today, right now, my one assignment to all of your following, which you are very popular, and I'm very honored to be on your show, but to thrive, we must hear ourselves. Are we awfulizing everything? Are we worried about the fact that it's going to rain today, and it's coming, and it's going to rain, and how's the weather? Did you know it? And notice that how you sound, you're listening. Your inner roommate up there is going, either I've got this or you're scaring me to death.
Right.
So that's my goal, is to help us listen and learn.
Yeah, and I really love, as I was hearing you speak and read that segment of the foreword, how you're really driving this point home of the what can become a pervasive theme in our lives, especially as parents, in our families, in our relationships. If we're always in the to-do mindset, in the hurry, we got to get this done, and the, kind of like driving for whatever destination we're supposed to be going towards, as opposed to what you're making me think of is just this being in the moment and being in appreciation of the moment, being in appreciation of the people that you're with in the moment, whether it's your children, your grandchildren, your partner, your friends, your coworkers, that it's the active verb of loving is not just in the hugs and the kisses and the gifts, but it's also in that inner attitude of just being.
And just being, yes.
Of just being. So there was a question that I was gonna save for later, but I'm feeling really tempted to start to go there right now.
Okay.
Because you mentioned the coworkers. I thought of the thought that crossed my mind is, well, what the people who are hearing this and say, yeah, I can love my partner, I can love my kids, but what does, I want for the audience to hear from you, what does loving out loud potentially look like at the workplace, especially if you have a boss you dislike or a coworker who irritates you? How do you bring that into practice? What are some ideas? Your book, and I want everybody to know, watching this and listening to this, your book is filled with stories, with ideas, with suggestions. You've got, at the end of every chapter, you've got 3 love out loud things you can do today. So it's filled with ideas. So what are some ideas for our audience who are like, yeah, I can't love out loud at work. It's just not going to happen.
Well, it's a very good question, because there are circumstances when we get burned out, or we know we're in an environment that's very negative, catching us being wrong versus being right. And what is very important to think about is when you were a kid, you had a buddy. If you had a friend to go with you somewhere, it sure made it easier. And look at your coworkers and try to get to know one. And I think, and being the first to invite them, would you like to have lunch with me today? Or I baked cookies last night, I just wanted to share them with you. So you have to decide, if you are in a storm and you are the sunshine, what might happen? You have a better chance at weathering the storm than putting on a raincoat, getting an umbrella, and just hiding. So the first thing I want to say is that in Loving Out Loud, this is a very serious chapter. And if you bring an ulterior motive to work, people are going to see through it. It's not sincere. So one of the things that I recommend is to learn how to notice, pay little attention to what people are doing right. Because this big shift in your mind where everything is wrong and you don't like your job and you don't like your boss, again, that is this negative cycle. So pay a little attention at what is right. Is the feel of your chair at your office desk feel good? Or you have a great equipment and it's warm and you're comfortable? Or you have to start really noticing the very little things. And while that might sound overly simplified, the truth is, are you comfortable for the moment? Mm-hmm. Are you safe? And then to start learning how to be specific in your praise. So you start noticing what other people are doing right. Instead of saying, you did a good job today. Instead saying, I really appreciate that suggestion when you said we should meet with the client in person and really listen. I said, that was just terrific. Mm-hmm. So we start learning, what part of the problem are we? Are we completely void of any responsibility here? And so being accountable at work means, what can I do to make a difference today for my coworkers? And how do you become a part of the team instead of righteous or better than someone else? And you might just look at volunteering for something the company's doing that's good, or start a volunteer corporate responsibility program.
Right.
Or find a cause nearby that needs help and ask your boss, could we once a week do this for an hour? And think about bringing the best version of yourself to work. And that just might be the spark. And remember, that's how it begins. Tiny steps to humankind, where humans start to be kinder.
Yes. And there's several things that you said that I love, just the idea of choosing to be the sunshine in the middle of a storm. You might be in a really awful work environment, but you can choose to just let yourself be a passive part of it, or say, well, I can bring cookies, I can bring actual cookies, and I can bring, verbal cookies of saying, hey, you look great today, or that was a great presentation, or, and the other thing that you're saying that is so key is paying attention and being specific. So I'll share with you it's It's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. And you mentioned it in the book, getting a thank you card that just says classic, wedding gift, thank you card. Thank you for the gift. When I got married, it was a big wedding, and we sent out hundreds of thank you cards, and I kept track of and I wrote thank you so much for the specific gift. And I remember writing, what that gift meant to me, or why we had chosen it, or what we look forward to doing with it. And of course, it took way longer. I got a number of people telling me, just write thank you for the gift, thank you for coming, and it just I couldn't do it. So, what do you say to people? Because the other part of a little bit of a pet peeve for me is getting a birthday card that just has a name signed on it. I feel like you need, just say something, just write something. So what do you say to people who say, oh, that's just too time consuming to be so detailed, or I just don't, because this is another piece too. I hear people say, I don't know what to say. What do you say to that?
Okay. Well, first of all, the world needs all of us, introverts, extroverts, those of us who emote. But we're going to move from rapid fire emoticons and emojis to thoughtfully expressing a feeling. So to that point, when you thank someone for something specific and you are describing the gift, and let's say you really didn't like the gift, even then, how did it make you feel? Did it make you feel loved that someone took the time to send a gift? Can you even go there and say, you always are so thoughtful thinking of us? And I loved seeing you at the wedding, and just want to thank you for sharing this special occasion and taking the time to gift us with your friendship and also the whatever it was. And I think the key now is to recognize that if thank you notes are a chore or a bore, then you're missing the idea that a thank you is a gift. And when you are given a gift and you give a gift in return, you add a little piece of yourself to that card. When my children were younger, we appointed my daughter, Allie, at the age of 3 to be CEO of a pretend family company called the Thank You Company. Her job was to notice all the nice people, and she'd say, you're hired. And they'd smile from ear to ear. And no matter where we were, the grocery, the cleaners, wherever, they would feel so awesome. But she started noticing when people say kind words, when they do nice deeds, what does it look like? And then she could break it down and join this wonderful human race, not to race, and just to be kind or thoughtful. Words on paper share a story. Mm-hmm. And when my kids were little, I also would read to them thank you notes from other kids that would say, thank you for the gift. Hope to see you soon. Love, let's say, Jason. Okay. And so I'd have them guess what it was. So Jason, give us a giraffe. Did I give him a giraffe or an elephant? Which one? Was it purple or pink? And so it became this little game. Can you guess what I gave Jason, right? And then what they started learning was you can describe something. Thank you for the baseball. I played outside and had so much fun, and I thought of you when I caught the ball, and I was great at it. So you tell a little story. Once you start thinking about the thank you as a gift, you realize that someone opens it up and reads it, and they either are touched or they're left cold. Which do you want to do? And it takes no more time to practice. That's why in this book, Loving Out Loud, I tell you how to do it. I give you words, ideas, how children can begin becoming thank you creatures, how to be a kinder finder, play I Spy Kindness. There's dozens of ideas for all those things. But Morella, I'd be remiss not to say there's 2 reasons I wrote this book. So would that be all right to address?
Please, yes. We would love to hear why you wrote this book.
Because Loving Out Loud, it was something I knew I was raised with, but not everyone has a beautiful childhood. But what everyone can do right now is make a choice. Are you going to live out loud, or are you going to bury your feelings? Because when you keep them in, you do yourself a disservice. And if you think a nice thought and let it out. So what happened was I lost both of my parents inside of a few years recently. And I said at my mother's eulogy, if Phyllis and Jack loved you, you were loved out loud. And if you were a stranger and you met them, you were loved out loud. And no matter who they came in contact, they felt this grand sense of joy if they were lovely to people. They were just lovely, lovely parents. And not everyone had that.
No.
But in this case, one of the things that I also learned was how to start asking for that kind of love. And I realized that if my parents loved me that much, I needed to pour love into others. And I asked why we cry. Why do we cry? And a rabbi said to me, we cry because when there is such a profound experience in our lives, we give the voice of tears to that experience. And I said that if you see me and you look at me and I start crying because I miss my parents, I said, it's okay because I'm loving them out loud. Now that they're gone, I loved them out loud when they were here. So if your parents are alive, or if you have an aunt or an uncle or a relative, don't delay loving them. Don't delay letting them know what they've meant to you. A teacher, a friend. And the other thing was my husband asked me for our first Valentine's Day. I'm remarried. I'm very fortunate to have married a very lovely man and a sweet man. And he's a man of a few words. So he said, what do you want for Valentine's Day? And I said, let me think about that. And I said, how about every morning just say something kind? And he said, well, how about good morning, beautiful? And I said, that's perfect. And every morning he started leaving Post-it notes by my coffee cup, the cereal bowl, GMB, good morning, beautiful. It's kind of like that Hallmark card, the card you said, you want someone to sign it. Even, ILY, I love you. To start having little reminders in your life of how you love others, right. You're going to find it comes right back to you. So loving out loud, it's doing powerful things right now. People are forgiving, reuniting, seeking professional help because they need it, learning how to set boundaries, and then learning how to raise kinder kids. If that's what this book accomplished, then I say thumbs up, we did it.
Absolutely. Raising kinder kids. And you have a whole a whole chapter dedicated to that. So before we have to say goodbye to our TV audience, who we only have a half hour on TV, but we can definitely stay on the radio and we'll be staying on YouTube Live. I want to remind everyone who might just have joined us that my guest today is Robyn Spizman. This is her new book, Loving Out Loud: The Power of a Kind Word. It is filled with it's a plethora of ideas on how to love out loud in your relationships, in your friendships, with your kids, with your coworkers, with strangers, and how to, start creating a culture of appreciation. You can get to connect with Robyn, find this book and all of her other books. You can find the link to her website on our podcast page, which is thrivewithmorella.com/podcast. And you can see all of the extraordinary work that Robyn has done over the years. You might end up, like me, buying more than one of Robyn's books. So thank you, everyone who's joined us on TV. You can tune in, continuing to listen to the conversation, my conversation with Robyn on 99.3 FM and also on YouTube Live. Just look up the Thrive with Morella show or Morella Devo channel, because we're going to talk about raising kinder kids and how to get more out loud, loving out loud in your relationship if you're missing some. So you just told us about your husband's Valentine's, the gift that keeps on giving, your Valentine's Day gift, that every day he shares some kind words and good morning beautiful with you. But I'm sure that there are a lot of people
and felt her husband never said anything. And she said, "What do? I love him, but he never says anything. It's like complacent misery." And I said, "Well, think about what you asked for. What do you want from him?" And she says, "Well, I love jewelry and I love when he gives me a new pocketbook." And she started saying all these material things. I said, "No, I'm talking about things we can't see, but we feel. So therefore we see them in a different way." And what she said was, "Well, I never thought about that." I said, "Okay." I said, "Why don't you write him a love letter? Why don't you let him know? And to please save this. And what you'd like is one day when he's ready to send you one back." And she couldn't believe it. 30 days to that letter, a love letter. He's probably spent 30 days on it. He borrowed a little bit from Shakespeare. Um, but he sent her a letter back and said, "Please save this forever as I will save your words." And she inspired something new because she went first. She just didn't say,
Right.
it wasn't just, me, right?
Yeah.
And I think what's happening now in today's world is that we send each other a smiley face or a heart, and that's supposed to say words. Have you ever saved a heart in a treasure box? It's like I can't take that off the text and then paste it into my heart, and it's kind of generic. So what I'd like to challenge everyone to think about is start with one person and think about how can you strengthen the bond instead of change them. That's not going to work. It's not going to happen. In fact, they'll feel threatened by all this. They'll think it's Pollyanna. Now you have on rose-colored glasses and you're buttering them up. And no. Start with one person and notice what they do right. And that goes back to being specific. Thank you for unloading the dishwasher for me. That was so wonderful. Instead of, why do you always put your things in the sink and start? Okay, so you really have to give up complaining. And this is going to be a big assignment for a lot of people, right? Because it's so easy to complain. But to create love in our lives and to create better relationships, we have to listen to our tone of voice. We have to slow down, and we have to be clear that if every time you sound like a broken record or you are repetitively redundant with cleanup, look at this mess, if you start this, you're going to have a very hard time creating a lot of loving out loud. So begin with try 24 hours not saying anything negative. Let's start there. Your spouse, your friends, your whoever calls you, nothing negative. And the next day, add something in that's positive. And every person you come in contact with, you have to pay one little attention to. Like, Morella, you're an amazing listener, and I really appreciate it. Your eye contact's great. You are listening with your mind and your heart, and your questions are very thoughtful. And you did your homework on my book. You read it and you prepared. That's specific. I'm paying attention to Morella. We can feel that. So I think that's where we have to stop. It's like stop, look, listen, and then love out loud. And that's how it begins. It's a process. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's a little bit at a time.
Yeah. And I love that you start, we've got to slow down and stop the train of the negative observations, and then potentially the next day then switch like, oh, what's positive here? And it can be a simple thing.
That's right.
Just observe what's a simple thing that's well done that can be appreciated. I so love what you're sharing because I don't know. I moved from New York City to Burlington, Vermont. I've now lived in Burlington for 12 years. There's a different pace. There's a different level of engagement in Vermont than there is in New York City. And in Vermont, what I find is that the slower pace, and this is something you've said several times, slowing down and being in the moment, where it's the slowing down to connect with the human being in front of you who's, maybe just checking you out of the grocery store or at, the bookstore or wherever, and just, saying hello and saying thank you and appreciating them. And it's interesting because I find that in Burlington, I have incredible conversations with the cashiers at the grocery store. We're talking about like, oh, what do you make with this? And we start talking about, and it becomes a really genuine exchange where you can appreciate each other in a very simple way. Oh, that's so creative. Oh, what a great question, or whatever it may be. And that's something that I didn't experience as much in places like New York City, where everyone's going a million miles a minute, where there's also there are so many people that I feel like people just shut down and don't want, there's a little bit of a not looking up to see who's the human in front of you. Now, you're in Atlanta, so you're in a far bigger city than me. Do you find that pace, the difference in pace, the big city versus smaller towns, does that play a role at all? Do you see that happening, or is it just, I don't know. Do you see that at all?
Well, I think it's your experience, so it's valid. Mm-hmm. You experienced a larger city moving faster, and now you're in a beautiful area of the world that's seems to be moving at a slower pace. It's not the same for everyone. There are individuals that move fast in New York City, and they're the most, amazing human beings, and they're just terrific, and they roll like that. And then you'll get to New York and someone will be taking their sweet time. And so I think it is circumstantial that would be your experience. I'm in a large city. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. And I know right now, I can tell you, even when I'm in a crowd rushing and moving fast, that I know that I don't have to join it, that I can still move at this very healthy pace that's not rushing. I might have to get somewhere a little earlier to be proactive. And I love the idea that if you plan ahead, you think about things. Now you can buy, the seats at a movie theater, and so your seats are reserved. You don't have to get there an hour earlier and beat the crowd. And, so I think what starts to happen in our day is as we start to plan better, we can love out loud more. If we forget everybody's birthdays, or we forget things, and we're doing everything at the last minute, it's stressful. Yeah. And it's void of that connection. But if you start right now, think about it. Start right now thinking about Thanksgiving or holidays or any Valentine's Day, even any time of the year, you will be more prepared. So on the to love list, I might write down what my best friend Patty loves. I might write down what my amazing daughter loves. And it's a little thought, and wow, if I showed up with it, she loves it. So it's also stopping and paying attention to others and making a record of it.
Right.
So I have this little, in we can put it in our iPhones, we can put it in an address book, whatever works for you. Little notes that reminds us what someone else appreciates means you're paying attention to what they cherish, what they love, a cause they might wish to give. If you want to make a donation in their honor, it could be $5, it could be $10, it could be very little, but it's what they love and appreciate. So you're connecting. And that's what this book, Loving Out Loud, is about: creating bonds between you and others that deepen those bonds, so you feel like two people are really on the same page. We will be friends. You'll understand me better. You might even do a better job because you feel appreciated by me, right? We do better when we are in environments and surrounded by individuals who want to see us succeed versus fail.
Right. Oh my goodness, so much that we could continue to talk about. And what you're saying, that this is really all about connecting, creating the moments of connection. And for that, we need to kind of slow down, pay attention, be specific, really notice the people. So I would like to just remind all of our viewers and listeners live or later on the podcast or YouTube that your beautiful book, Loving Out Loud, is available now. My guest, if you're just joining us on the radio or YouTube, is Robyn Spizman, author of many wonderful books, and this is her latest one, Loving Out Loud, The Power of a Kind Word, which is filled with ideas, suggestions, stories, even recipes for your peach strudel, I think it is.
That's great.
To love through food. You have ideas for like thanking the boss as opposed to asking for the manager when things are going wrong, maybe asking for the manager when somebody's doing a great job and letting the manager. I loved that one. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that one.
Everybody feels good.
What a beautiful thing to do, to ask for someone's boss and tell the boss how great a job somebody's doing. That's fantastic. I also took down having a thank you kit. I always have thank you cards at hand because I like writing thank you cards. But there's so many things that you've suggested in your book that I would love for people who could learn some skills in loving out loud and working that muscle of appreciation and expression to check it out, because what you're doing is really creating a ripple effect in children, in friendships. You know, the more kindness that we show into the world, you know, the more that will continue to extend. So I really thank you for your work, Robyn. And before we say farewell, I want to ask you, are there any final thoughts, anything we didn't touch on that you think we really must mention?
Wow, that's such a big question. I think that I just want to leave everybody with one idea, that regardless of the type of childhood you had, and regardless of the life you've lived up until this moment, you have an amazing opportunity to try to turn it around. And that doesn't mean making a reality that's not truthful. What it means is bringing the best of you when you feel joy to share it with someone else, and to let go of some of the fears you have when you meet someone. And you might say, there's someone I'd like to get to know. Would you be open to a new friend? Take a risk and be kind. Love out loud, and learn how to talk to each other, your neighbors, our children, our parents, with more compassion and empathy. And remember, you'll never regret loving out loud.
Mm-hmm. You'll never
I'd
regret.
say that would be the final note, a high note, and a high five to you, Morella. You are fantastic. I feel I'm thriving today thanks to knowing you. So thank you.
Yes, we are thriving. That is a high note. You will never regret a kind word said or loving out loud. You might regret having held it back. So I thank you for ending on that note.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Morella.
So we will say goodbye to our Facebook friends before we play music.